Welcome to another episode of Let's Code. We're excited to have you here. We've got a couple of great speakers lined up, and today's topic is going to be from Adoptium, or from AdoptOpenJDK to Eclipse Adoptium toward an open Java ecosystem. So some exciting things going on in the Java world, and today we have with us Mark. Mark, could you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll turn it over to Samir to introduce himself.
Sure. Thanks, Neil. My name's Mark Studley. I'm the IBM Chief Architect for IBM Java, and I'm also the project lead, or one of the project leads, for the Eclipse OpenJ9 project. I'll pass it over to Samir.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Hi, Neil. Hello, everyone. My name is Samir Kamerkar. I am the Program Director for IBM Runtime Technologies and Mobile Platform Group. I lead basically the teams that build, test, and distribute IBM's Java based on OpenJDK and Eclipse OpenJ9. As part of my role, I also hold the vice chair position on the OpenJDK governing board, and I'm the one steering committee member on the Eclipse Adoptium project as well.
Okay, great. So I guess our first question really is, what is Adoptium?
That's a good question to start with, Neil. So the simplest answer is Adoptium is a top-level Eclipse Foundation project and a working group whose mission is to produce and promote high-quality runtimes and associated technologies for the Java ecosystem. I guess, as many of our audience today may know, it is the evolution of the AdoptOpenJDK community and project. IBM and Red Hat are both contributing to the project along with other key players in the Java ecosystem like Microsoft, Alibaba Cloud, Azure, Karakun. Even user groups like iJog from Germany are participating in the Adoptium project and working group. Adoptium project's primary mission remains the same as what was for the AdoptOpenJDK project. It is to provide high-quality, well-tested OpenJDK-based Java binaries that can be used by enterprises across a large number of platforms, not just traditional servers, but also modern cloud platforms as well as embedded systems even. So you may ask, if it is just providing binaries, why is it an Eclipse open source project? Let me answer that with a little bit of historical perspective as well. Since its beginning, OpenJDK was primarily a source-only project. There was always a general lack of reusable, trusted build and test systems for the OpenJDK source. If you wanted to just get the Java binaries and deploy them and use them, you were dependent on one of the licensees like Red Hat, IBM, SAP, etc. to get a Java build. Or you have to take the OpenJDK source and build the JDK or JRE, whatever is your need yourself. But then there was no standard build process also available, and it's definitely no test suite beyond the JTREG, functional regression test, and the TCK for Java compliance. As the Java ecosystem grew, many more joined in building and distributing their own Java binaries, but these were primarily only on platforms of the builders' interest. IBM was building for their platforms and perhaps the largest spread, but most others only built it for their platforms that they were interested in. There was no comprehensive build and test system for OpenJDK that could be reused by anyone with confidence to be put in production. AdoptOpenJDK was formed around 2017 to fill that gap, and Adoptium will continue that mission to build the reusable technologies around building, testing, and distributing OpenJDK-based Java binaries. This is the major work that is happening at Adoptium as an open source project at Eclipse. At the project and community, you now have a large collection of production-ready build scripts, test automation tools like TRSS, test results summary service, which provides in a very usable or user-friendly interface the summary of all your CI/CD test runs, and a comprehensive functional and system validation test suite, Aqua, or Adoptium Quality Assurance. So that's how the project is an open source community which works on all these things collaboratively to enhance the availability of a build system, a test system for the Java ecosystem in general. And then there is the Adoptium working group as well. The working group's charter is to promote and support the technologies that are developed and derived from the Adoptium project itself. When the Java ecosystem hears that IBM uses the build scripts and Aqua test suites, Microsoft does their OpenJDK builds based on Adoptium scripts and also uses Aqua test suites to validate, it will build confidence and trust in the Adoptium deliverables. The working group thus will also provide a marketplace where members like IBM, Red Hat, Microsoft can showcase their deliverables that use Adoptium technology and Java builds. The working group also will propose a quality criteria and a quality certification process for enterprise-grade runtime technologies, again, building up confidence and trust in the Java ecosystem to use the binaries from the marketplace and the Adoptium project. So if I have to sum it up in short, Adoptium is a place to come and get trusted, high-quality OpenJDK-based Java binaries. And it is also a place to collaborate on a robust build, test, and distribution technology set that will make the Open Java ecosystem stronger. That's my view, Neil.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I don't have anything to add to that, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, it was pretty comprehensive, and it showed nicely the evolution of that 2017 initiative around Adopt OpenJDK and how that's moving forward now into the Eclipse Foundation with the working group, and that it's exciting stuff because it's yet again showing the strength of Java in the ecosystem and the collaboration that's possible within the Java community. Mark, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about why Adoptium versus just staying with the Adopt OpenJDK.
Sure. So I think one of the big reasons for that is just the sheer success that the Adopt OpenJDK community has had, right? If you look at the number of downloads in 4 years, the Adopt OpenJDK has gotten to the level of 300 million downloads of JDK binaries, right? That's a huge achievement. The latest JVM ecosystem report from SNCC showed that Adopt OpenJDK is the largest single provider of JDK binaries at this point. And with that level of success comes, sort of a modicum of responsibility as well. And so the idea was, I think, to move forward, to progress forward to the next step, and moving to a foundation to ensure that this project that's been built continues to succeed and continues to serve the needs of the broader community as well as it can do. And so the Eclipse Foundation was a natural choice for that. The Eclipse Foundation has been involved in the Java ecosystem for a long time, has great familiarity with the ecosystem, knows the developers, and so on. And so it was a natural choice for Adopt to move to the Eclipse Foundation. And I think as part of that move, also it brought sort of a natural, as you move into the foundation, obviously you have to take some things very seriously, like adoption of standards and adherence to standards to make sure that you're really building standardized software. And so, as part of that, one of the things that Eclipse brought was this sort of dedication to producing TCK certified JDK binaries and a commitment to only, promote TCK certified binaries so that the ecosystem can rely on the implementation of the Java standards. And so, as part of the project moving to Eclipse, pursued getting an OCTLA agreement from Oracle. So the TCK that measures it's the best way we have to measure standards compliance, which is to run the TCK certification suite That's a proprietary suite that's maintained by by Oracle as the stewards of the Java language. They own that test suite. And Eclipse entered into an agreement with Oracle to license the use of that TCK suite so that we can produce TCK certified binaries. Now, an unfortunate hurdle there is it doesn't seem possible to get an OCTLA license so that you can run the TCK tests against a JDK binary that contains OpenJ9. And so people who are familiar with AdoptOpenJDK know that one of the key questions you're asked when you're downloading a JDK binary is, do you want it to have the hotspot engine, which is the runtime engine that's included in the OpenJDK project? Or do you want to use the runtime engine that's provided by the Eclipse OpenJ9 project, which is a lightweight, low footprint, fast startup, optimized for the cloud kind of runtime engine? I wear my bias on my chest. And so, if we can't get a TCK to run OpenJ9 to run the TCK and certify those OpenJ9 based binaries, Adoptium has no way to actually produce a JDK with OpenJ9 anymore, and that's a problem for continuity. We don't want there's a large community of people, a large set of businesses who are building dependencies on these OpenJ9 based builds, and so Adoptium came up with what I think is a very elegant solution to this problem, which is, Samir already mentioned, the vendor marketplace. And that is the way by which this will be resolved. So that in that marketplace, the vendor members of the Adoptium working group will be able to put their JDK binaries there. And as part of that, IBM, since we have joined the Adoptium working group, we care deeply about that OpenJ9 community and the set of developers and customers that are and businesses that are dependent on those. So we've stepped up. Samir and I wrote a blog article a couple months back, that indicated that IBM is going to be stepping forward to produce no cost OpenJ9 based JDK binaries. Basically the same thing that AdoptOpenJDK had been producing. We'll be producing that, and we'll be reusing the Adoptium infrastructure to do that, the scripts and tests and all of that infrastructure to do it. So it's going to be, the same thing basically, except built by IBM. And we'll be producing those and putting them into the vendor marketplace when it's available, so that people can continue to use OpenJ9-based JDK binaries. But I think the marketplace is more than just a place to put OpenJ9. It's also a place where all the vendors can put their JDK binaries. And I think that's a very valuable thing for the community, because it establishes a common place where you can find vendor binaries that have met, the rigorous quality standards that the Adoptium Akavit project produces. So, I'll toot my IBM horn for a bit, for just a moment, and mention that the Akavit test suite it was contributed by IBM. They're the set of release tests that we were able to open source. So it's not quite all of our release testing, but it's the vast majority of those release tests. And it includes stress tests, it includes functional tests, it includes performance tests. And that's kind of, where we were 4 years ago. And since then, the Akavit project has taken things a lot further. And, under the leadership of Shelley Lambert, who I have great respect for, and the vision that she has shown in this space, Akavit is now including, the test suites from open source projects to ensure that when a JDK is produced and released, that it runs the open source projects that people depend on for their businesses and for their needs. And so, I think it's a very good thing that we've gotten to this place with Adoptium, and the vendor marketplace is going to be a great and valuable thing for Java developers and businesses that want to depend on Java.
Very cool. Very cool. Just a quick follow-up to that. We have a question from the audience that is relevant. Do you plan on making available native builds for Apple Silicon M1 processor?
Yeah, I think that is so. Once the OpenJDK community has added those JEPs to JDK process. So some of those JEPs are coming in with came in with JDK 16. Some of them are coming in with 17. Once the JEPs are part of the Java platform and part of that, that certifiable story, those platform builds are going to get added to Adoptium as well. I don't know if that question was for OpenJ9 specifically or for just Adoptium. So that's the Adoptium answer.
Sure.
From an OpenJ9 standpoint, we are also working on that support, and we'll be providing it once the JEPs have been added to OpenJDK, so that we can rely upon them.
Right. And I see as well, there was a question from Fred. Will the JDK binaries be certified as having run the TCK? You've kind of covered that. I think that the Adoptium ones will, OpenJ9 will have gone through other testing, but not specifically the TCK.
Well, if you get a JDK binary from Eclipse Adoptium or from anything from Eclipse, technically, it will have to be TCK certified.
Right.
Yeah.
So anything you get from Eclipse Adoptium will be TCK certified, whether it's OpenJ9 or not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
And that's where the vendor marketplace comes in.
That's right.
Adoptium project proper will build the Temurin Java binaries, which will be only hotspot based, and vendors like IBM. And well, I should say that IBM is IBM is the only one who can run a TCK suite on OpenJ9 today. So we will be doing that and posting those or supplying those IBM built, IBM tested, and IBM TCK certified OpenJ9 based OpenJDK binaries to the Adoptium working group marketplace.
Okay, so that's the distinction.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad we were able to get that distinction covered. So all the binaries will be TCK certified. They're just where they're distributed is going to be the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. So sort of a follow-on question to all of this. Great background in terms of the reason for moving towards Adoptium, and I just wondering how will Adoptium serve the overall Java ecosystem?
I'll take a first stab at that, Neil. So as I said in the what is Adoptium, the primary service Adoptium is going to provide is a trusted place to get pre-built, tested, certified Java binaries of the various flavors you want, right? So Microsoft will be posting their OpenJDK binaries, which perhaps have additional value add that makes them work well on Azure. IBM will be posting OpenJ9 based certified binaries, which, as you know, are not only running faster, starting faster, providing a smaller memory footprint, and basically very tailored about running Java in cloud, but also provide this build scripts and test suites and test monitoring tools that anybody can take to use and build their Java and have that confidence that it will be built to then pass the certification if they have the TCK, or it can be used to test with Aquavit and have that high bar of quality. That's the primary value Adoptium will bring. And with the members we have and the kind of work they're doing in these various areas, you will very soon see the benefits to the ecosystem coming out of that. But in addition to that, we are also looking at members to bring in some of their innovation or experimental stuff that may be too early to be put as a project or as a request to OpenJDK. We will, of course, coexist within the Java specification and all, but Adoptium will provide an incubator project for such experiments. The intention is to incubate such ideas, collaborate with them rather than just one company trying that out, collaborate with them, with the members of the Adoptium, and incubate them, support them until they're mature enough to be finally proposed as a JEP or as a sub-project in OpenJDK. That is another value add. And then there are various technologies around the JDK proper. And one example of that is being worked on at Adoptium is using JLink as a service. And JLink is one of the newer tools once modularity was introduced in Java. And that one as a service to link your used Java classes together and dynamically create a JRE that is needed by your application, that can be done with the JLink tool included in the JDK. But we are working on, as the Adoptium community, to make that available as a service as well. Just another example of that. So those are some of the value adds, and that's where the focus slightly broadens. OpenJDK is focused on building Java as per the language specification, but there are these things around Java, supporting technologies that are needed when you want to use Java in an enterprise environment, when you want to certifiably or repeatedly build Java in a trusted way or OpenJDK in a trusted way. And that's the value Adoptium projects and the Adoptium working group will bring to the ecosystem.
Yeah,
Mark,
so
do you want to add something?
I'll add one more thing to that, which is probably the more boring of the of the things that that could be talked about here. But I think it's about taking interoperability seriously, right? If you look at what's happened in the JDK space in the last 4 years, right, we've gone from having kind of a couple of different, or maybe 2 or 3, 4 different JDK distributions really being commonly used, to having an explosion of many different JDK vendors that are now producing JDKs, and I think and more people are using those JDK binaries. If you look at the JVM ecosystem report, you can see that there's a wide breadth of different JDK binaries that people are using actively. And I think it's important for those to be interoperable and make sure that they're really adhering to the standards, and making sure that they, when you start using one, that you're not necessarily locked into using that one. You could shift to another one if you want to. And I think it's very important in this world where everybody has third-party dependencies, and some people work with one JDK distribution and other people work with another JDK distribution. It's becoming much more common for people to use multiple JDK binary distributions in their organization. And if they're not interoperable, if they don't work the same way, if they're not built the same way, then that just becomes a burden for those organizations to maintain and keep it going. And if they're going to different places and they work different ways and they have different support, all of those problems can be addressed, or at least enhanced and helped with by working at the Adoptium workplace working group. Right. You can take interoperability as a serious problem for the ecosystem and work to try to make that better for consumers. Yeah,
that it sounds like the right path to we've seen other languages evolve in this way. Well, even Java at the enterprise level, moving into the Jakarta and microprofile areas. That it seems like we're on a similar track with Java now to really have a standardized community-driven approach that is building on what happened with the AdoptOpenJDK work.
And your mention of Jakarta reminded me, Neil, that was the other value proposition for Adoptium and AdoptOpenJDK to come to Eclipse, that now Eclipse has that full range of both Java SE and Java EE projects, and can become a collaborative space for the both key areas of the Java language.
Yeah, that's going to be very exciting to see how we can have those working groups collaborate on the future of Java across the board. One of the things that I am keenly interested in, this show on Expert TV, Let's Code, is primarily focused on developers. So I am very interested in knowing, just at a sort of high level, what the impact you see on developers who are currently using binaries from AdoptOpenJDK. What will be changing in terms of their access to it, their their ability to contribute? Is there an opportunity there? Should we be seeing more people joining to become contributors and collaborators on this?
Well, these are open communities, so they're people. We always welcome more people contributing and getting involved. And there are lots of different ways that you can get involved too. It doesn't just have to be about writing code. It can be helping with documentation. It can be helping with tests. It could be helping by adding new test suites or suggesting new test suites that could be added into the Aquavit project, for example, or working on the presentation layers, as the TRS project that Samir mentioned earlier. Like there's a wide variety of skills that are needed across this whole working group that are valuable. And if people have skills and are willing to contribute, then I'd encourage you very much to get involved. It's a very welcoming community. It's a great place to get involved, and that what you're doing is going to help lots of people because it's a very successful community too.
Right. I can see from the activities that you've been involved in, both of you, and the sort of the excitement you have about everything that's going on in the Java world, that this ability to collaborate with what might be considered rivals in some respects is actually a great way to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And each one of...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark. Okay. And each one of the participants brings in separate skill set or separate focus, right? I'll give you one example. Recently, or rather few months ago at Adoptium, there is an effort that started about applying secure engineering principles to the build itself. Today, we have seen in open source system, right, figuring out what has constituted this build has been very difficult. So a bill of materials kind of system, which tells you exactly what has come into this build, that is another effort that is going on at Adoptium. And that's where we pulled in Sonatype. And they are experts in that. And that way we are hoping that with their expertise and applying this, we can build a system where Java builds, when they're taken up from, say, a Maven repositories, they come with that bill of material and exactly tell you which components, which parts, where did they come from, which open source project or sub-project. So in terms, and another thing, Mark, keep me honest here, with even the OpenJDK moving to GitHub and having this sort of a CI/CD or build and test system at AdoptOpenJDK, it will make it even easier for developers to contribute and look at their work's test results at Adoptium, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The one thing I'll add to that is, co-opetition, I think, has been a key part of the Java ecosystem from its very beginnings, right? As a proprietary technology, and again, IBM hat here. So it's IBM has been involved in the Java ecosystem since almost its inception, right? More than 20 years we've been building Java, using different technologies, and producing Java for our customer base. And many of those spots are places where we're in competition with other people who are in the like, we build products that compete with other people who are building Java. and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly acceptable. But we understand, I think all of us, that the collaborating at the Java level is the right solution to the problem, because it helps foster the entire ecosystem and all the businesses. It provides a safe place for businesses to innovate and tackle their business problems. And yes, we're going to compete vigorously in the places where we compete, but that doesn't prevent us from collaborating in places where collaboration makes a lot of sense. And Java is a layer where that makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I did see a question come up in our chat from Alicia. Do you plan to apply security fixes for longer than OpenJDK does, or are you going to follow the same maintenance window of OpenJDK?
Adoptium will follow the same maintenance window as OpenJDK, because Adoptium does not maintain or will not maintain a separate fork of the OpenJDK source. It will just build whatever is at OpenJDK.
Right. Right.
Yeah, OpenJDK is Java. It's the source of all Java. right?
Right.
And that's important.
Okay, great. Well, I again appreciate you guys taking the time to walk us through this. I think there's some really exciting activity going on in the Java world based on this move to Adoptium and the rigor, the collaboration that's happening. And I expect there's some exciting stuff coming from IBM as we look at the marketplace and the way in which OpenJ9 will be delivered. So for our audience, stay tuned. We'll be exploring this in more detail going forward. And any closing remarks, Mark or Samir, before we let our audience get back to their day?
Come meet us at Adoptium as well as Eclipse OpenJ9. It's on GitHub. There are Slack channel, public Slack channels. We'll be very happy to continue this discussion and hear your views on how we can continue to serve the Java ecosystem.
Yeah, I'll second that, and also just say thanks for the opportunity to talk with your listeners. This has been great. I really appreciate it, and hope we can come back at some point and give you an update on more of the developments that are going on.
Sounds perfect. You're always welcome, and looking forward to it. For our audience, continue to subscribe to Let's Code and Expert TV generally. We've got some exciting channels, some new stuff coming along, and we're always interested in hearing your comments. So please participate in the chat as you watch the episodes, and be sure to come back. Replays are always available. So with that, I think we'll wrap up, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.